The galaxy had seen countless vessels traverse its mass relay network over 50,000 years of cyclic civilization, but nothing prepared the Citadel's defense fleet for what emerged from the spatial distortion near the Serpent Nebula. The anomaly wasn't a relay activation. Sensors detected no element zero discharge, no characteristic blue shimmer of FTL translation. Instead, reality itself seemed to tear open, spilling exotic particles that made every mass effect field in the vicinity fluctuate wildly. The USS Enterprise D dropped out of the rift like a leviathan, breaching an impossible ocean. Captain Jean-Luc Picard gripped his command chair as the ship's inertial dampeners struggled to compensate for the violent transition. The view screen showed stars he'd never charted, constellations that belonged to no Federation database. His crew worked their stations with practiced efficiency, but he could see the tension in their postures. They all understood what had just happened, even if none of them could explain it. "Report," Picard commanded, his voice steady despite the knot forming in his stomach. "We've been displaced approximately 2.4 million light-years from our last known position," Data announced from Ops, his golden eyes flickering as he processed the sensor data. "However, the stellar drift patterns suggest we may not be in our own universe. The fundamental physical constants appear similar, but there are quantum variations I cannot immediately account for. Captain, I'm detecting multiple vessels approaching our position," Worf rumbled from Tactical. "They're using a propulsion system I've never encountered, no warp signatures, but they're achieving faster-than-light velocities through what appears to be localized mass reduction." Picard stood, smoothing his uniform. First contact protocols under the most unusual circumstances imaginable. "Hail them, Lieutenant. Universal Translator standing by." The view screen shifted to show a Turian patrol commander, his face a mass of metallic plates and predatory features that made several bridge crew members tense. The translator took a moment to process, then the alien's flanged voice came through clearly. "Unknown vessel. You are in Citadel-controlled space. Identify yourself immediately or we will open fire. Your ship's profile matches no known species in Council records." Picard clasped his hands behind his back, adopting his most diplomatic posture. "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. We mean no harm. We were pulled into your space by an anomaly beyond our control. We request permission to speak with your governing authority to explain our situation." The Turian's eyes narrowed, mandibles twitching. "Federation? There is no Federation in Citadel records. Your vessel's energy signatures are unlike anything our sensors have encountered. You will stand down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection." "I'm afraid I cannot permit that," Picard replied calmly. "However, I am willing to meet with representatives of your Citadel to establish peaceful relations. We are explorers, not conquerors." For a long moment, the Turian commander studied him. Finally, "Maintain your position. I'm forwarding this to the Council. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate force. Patrol Commander Orventius out." The screen went dark. Picard turned to his crew. "Counselor Troy?" Deanna leaned forward, frowning. "He was deeply suspicious, Captain, but also fascinated. There's genuine curiosity beneath the military posturing. Whatever this Citadel is, they take first contact very seriously." "As do we." Picard returned to his chair. "Data. Begin a passive sensor sweep of this region. I want to know what kind of civilization we're dealing with. Mr. Worf, keep shields up but weapons on standby only. Mr. LaForge, I need you to analyze that propulsion system those ships were using. If we're going to navigate this galaxy, we need to understand its technology." "Captain," Data interrupted, "I am detecting what appears to be a massive space station at the center of this nebula." The structure is approximately 45 kilometers long and houses an estimated 13 million inhabitants, representing multiple species. Picard's eyebrows rose. A multi-species alliance. Fascinating. It seems we may have more in common with these people than we initially thought. But as he watched the alien vessels maintain their cautious distance, Picard couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just stepped into something far more complicated than a simple first contact scenario. The Enterprise was alone, far from Federation support, in a galaxy that might operate by very different rules than the ones he'd spent a lifetime upholding. The Federation's principles would be tested here. He could feel it. The Citadel Council chamber was designed to impress, and even Jean-Luc Picard, who had negotiated with Romulans, reasoned with the Borg, and stood before the Continuum itself, found himself acknowledging the architectural achievement. The massive circular platform floated above a holographic display of the galaxy, while three figures stood on an elevated dais: a Turian with sharp, aristocratic features, an Asari with skin like polished azure and eyes that held centuries of wisdom, and a Solarian whose rapid movements and unblinking stare suggested a mind operating at remarkable speed. Picard stood alone on the platform, his away team remaining aboard the Enterprise per the Council's security requirements. He'd agreed, despite Worf's vehement protests, because this was a diplomatic mission. Sometimes trust had to be extended before it could be earned. "Captain Picard," the Asari began, her voice melodious but carrying unmistakable authority. "I am Counselor Tevos. My colleagues are Counselor Sparatus of the Turian hierarchy and Counselor Valern of the Solarian Union. You claim to be from a civilization called the Federation, yet our records, which span tens of thousands of years, contain no reference to your species or your technology. With respect, Counselor, that's because we're not from this galaxy." Picard kept his tone measured, diplomatic. "My ship was pulled through what we believe was a spatial rift, a tear in the fabric of space-time itself. We originate from a galaxy approximately 2.4 million light-years from here." Sparatus's mandibles twitched, a Turian expression of skepticism. "Impossible. No species possesses the technology for intergalactic travel. Even the mass relays built by the Protheans 50,000 years ago only function within this galaxy." "Mass relays?" Picard filed the term away for later analysis. "I assure you, Counselor, we did not come here by choice. Our propulsion system, what we call warp drive, manipulates subspace to achieve faster-than-light travel. But even at maximum velocity, an intergalactic journey would take decades. We were transported here by forces we don't yet understand." Valern spoke, his words coming rapid-fire. "Your vessel's energy signatures are anomalous. No element zero discharge, no mass effect fields for propulsion or kinetic barriers. Yet you achieve FTL somehow. Your weapons emit directed energy, not mass-accelerated projectiles. And your ship's computer systems appear to include a fully sentient artificial intelligence, which violates Citadel law." Picard stiffened. "Commander Data is not merely an AI. He is a sentient being with rights and personhood recognized by Federation law. I will not permit him to be treated as illegal technology." "Then you have a problem, Captain," Sparatus said coldly. "The morning war between the Quarians and the Geth nearly destroyed a species and destabilized this entire region of space. Sentient AI is banned throughout Citadel space. Your continued presence here with such technology aboard constitutes a violation that could warrant military action. Surely you can see the difference between an individual and an army of networked synthetics," Picard argued, his diplomatic training warring with his protective instincts toward his crew. "Commander Data has served with distinction for years. He has saved countless lives, including my own. To dismiss him as merely technology is both scientifically inaccurate and morally wrong. Tivos raised a hand, forestalling Sporadis's response. This is a debate for another time. Captain, your presence here raises questions that go beyond legal technicalities. Your technology is unlike anything we've encountered. That makes you either a valuable potential ally or a dangerous unknown threat. The Federation's principles are clear, Picard said firmly. We seek peaceful coexistence, mutual understanding, and cooperation among sentient species. We have a directive, a prime directive, that prevents us from interfering in the natural development of other civilizations. However, we also believe in rendering aid when requested and defending the innocent against aggression. Noble words, Valern observed, but this galaxy operates on practical realities. The Citadel maintains order through Council authority. Individual species maintain their sovereignty, but defer to Council judgment on matters affecting galactic stability. Where would your Federation fit in such a structure? It was the crux of the matter, and Picard knew it. The Enterprise was one ship, alone in an alien galaxy. They had no reinforcements, no Federation support structure, no established diplomatic relations. He could claim Federation authority all he wanted, but here, in this place, it meant nothing. We would seek observer status, Picard said carefully. An opportunity to learn about your civilization, to share what knowledge we can appropriately offer, and to determine whether our presence here can be beneficial to both parties. Tevos exchanged glances with her fellow counselors. Some silent communication passed between them. Picard noted the brief blue shimmer around Tevos's head and filed it away as another mystery to investigate. Very well, Tevos finally said. You will be granted temporary observer status while we assess your claims and technology. However, there are conditions. Your vessel will submit to limited scans by Citadel scientists. You will share basic information about your propulsion and defensive systems, not schematics, but operational principles. And your AI will be evaluated by our experts to determine if it poses a threat. Commander Data will cooperate with reasonable examination, Picard agreed, but I will not allow him to be treated as a specimen or subjected to invasive procedures. Acceptable, Tivos nodded. Captain Picard, I should warn you of something else. This galaxy is facing a crisis. 3 years ago, a ship called Sovereign attacked the Citadel. We believed it was a Geth dreadnought, but evidence suggests it was something far older. Something called a Reaper. Picard's attention sharpened. Go on. Most of the Council does not believe the Reaper theory, Sparatus interjected. But there are those who claim the Reapers are ancient machines that return every 50,000 years to harvest advanced civilizations. Extinction-level events on a galactic scale. And you're telling me this because... Tevos's expression was unreadable. Because if you truly are from another galaxy, Captain, you may be the only ones who can look at our situation with fresh eyes. And if the Reaper threat is real, we may need all the help we can get. Picard felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. The Prime Directive prohibited interference in other cultures' development. But if this galaxy faced extinction, could he stand by and do nothing? The question would haunt him in the days to come. Picard's ready room had become a sanctuary for contemplation since their arrival in this strange galaxy. He sat now with a cup of Earl Grey, staring at the data streaming across his desk terminal. 3 days of diplomatic meetings, technical briefings, and cultural exchange had given him a clearer picture of the Mass Effect galaxy, and it troubled him deeply. The door chimed. Come, Counselor Troy entered, taking the seat across from him without invitation. She knew him well enough to recognize when he needed someone to talk to, even if he wouldn't ask. You're conflicted, she said simply. That's putting it mildly. Picard set down his tea. "Deanna, the more I learn about this galaxy, the more I realize how precarious our position is. The Citadel Council governs through consensus among 3 species: Turians, Asari, and Solarians. But there are dozens of other species relegated to secondary status. The Krogan were nearly wiped out by a biological weapon deployed by the Turians and Solarians. The Quarians lost their homeworld and live as nomads. The Batarians operate a slave trade beyond Council space. It's not so different from the Alpha Quadrant before the Federation," Troy observed. "Species in conflict, struggling for resources and survival. No, but we had the luxury of time. This galaxy may not." Picard pulled up a holographic display showing the wreckage of Sovereign. "This Reaper theory, most of the Council dismisses it as the ravings of one human specter. But I've reviewed the evidence, Deanna. Sovereign was technology far beyond anything this galaxy possesses. And if the pattern holds, civilizations rising and falling every 50,000 years, then interference may already be occurring on a scale that dwarfs the Prime Directive's concerns. You're thinking about helping them. I'm thinking about our responsibility." Picard stood, pacing to the window where the Citadel's massive arms stretched across space. If the Reapers exist, if they truly are harvesting advanced civilizations, then this isn't a case of natural development. This is genocide on a cyclical galactic scale. The Prime Directive was never meant to prevent us from stopping mass murder. "But, Captain," Troy said carefully, "we're one ship. What could we possibly do against a threat that destroyed the Protheans, a civilization that spanned the entire galaxy?" Before Picard could respond, his comm badge chirped. "Bridge to Captain Picard. We have an urgent communication from someone calling himself the Elusive Man. He claims to represent a human organization called Cerberus and says he has information vital to our mission." Picard exchanged glances with Troy. "Human. There are humans in this galaxy." "Apparently so, sir, and he's quite insistent." "Pipe it to my ready room. Counselor, I want you to evaluate his emotional state." The view screen activated, revealing a figure silhouetted against a brilliant star. As the image clarified, Picard saw a middle-aged human man with striking blue cybernetic eyes, holding a glass of amber liquid and projecting an aura of absolute confidence. "Captain Picard," the man said, his voice smooth and calculated, "I've been very interested in your ship since it arrived. I'm the Elusive Man, and I represent humanity's interests in this galaxy." "I wasn't aware humanity had established itself here," Picard replied cautiously. "We're a relatively young species in Citadel space, 35 years since first contact, and already we're making waves. But you, Captain, you're something entirely different. A human starship from another galaxy, with technology that makes our best ships look like chemical rockets. I'm sure you can understand why that interests me." "I'm not interested in sharing Federation technology with anyone, mister. Just the Elusive Man. And I'm not asking for handouts, Captain. I'm offering you information. You want to know about the Reapers? About the real threats facing this galaxy? Cerberus has been investigating while the Council sticks its collective head in the sand." Troy leaned forward slightly, and Picard caught her subtle nod. The man believed what he was saying, at least partially. "Why would you share this information with us?" Picard asked. "Because the enemy of my enemy is useful, Captain. The Council is too cautious, too bound by politics to act decisively. Humanity needs allies who understand that sometimes hard choices must be made. Your Federation sounds admirably principled, but I wonder, when faced with extinction, would you really stand on ceremony?" "The Federation has faced extinction-level threats before," Picard said coldly. "We've survived by adhering to our principles, not abandoning them." "How inspiring." The elusive man took a sip of his drink. Here's a test of those principles, then. There's a human colony in the Terminus systems, outside Council space. They've gone dark. No communications, no signals. Just like 24 other colonies over the past few months. Something is taking our people, Captain. Tens of thousands of humans, vanished without a trace. And you think this is related to the Reapers? I think the Collectors are taking them. And the Collectors only work for one master, the Reapers themselves. The Council won't investigate. It's human colonies, Terminus space, not their problem. But you, Captain Picard, you claim the Federation defends the innocent. Here's your chance to prove it. Picard felt the trap closing. Refuse, and he'd be abandoning people to an unknown fate. Accept, and he'd be working with an organization he knew nothing about, potentially violating the Prime Directive in ways he couldn't yet foresee. I'll need to verify this information independently, Picard said finally. Of course. I'll transmit the colony's coordinates and our intelligence on the Collectors. Do with it what you will. The elusive man leaned back. But Captain, the clock is ticking. Every day we debate, more people disappear. I wonder how your principals will feel when you're counting the dead. The transmission ended. Picard stood in silence for a long moment. He's manipulating you, Troy said quietly. Everything he said was designed to provoke exactly this response. I know, but that doesn't make the missing colonists any less real. Picard returned to his desk, suddenly feeling very tired. Data's analysis of the Citadel's records confirms the disappearances. Whatever this elusive man's agenda, the crisis is genuine. What will you do? What I must. Picard looked up at her and she saw the burden of command heavy in his eyes. We investigate, but carefully, Deanna. Very carefully. Because I have a feeling we're about to step into something that will define our entire time in this galaxy. The question was whether the Federation's principles could survive the encounter. The Enterprise's main engineering was a cathedral of humming machinery and pulsing lights, but today it hosted an unusual congregation. Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge stood at a workstation with 3 Asari scientists, their blue skin luminescent in the warp core's glow, while a Turian military analyst kept a respectful but watchful distance. The technology exchange Picard had agreed to was proceeding, though Geordi kept one eye on Data, who was being evaluated by a Solarian AI expert across the room. This is remarkable, breathed Dr. Liara Tisoni, youngest of the Asari team, but apparently their most eager learner. Your propulsion system doesn't use element 0 at all. You're actually warping space-time itself. That's the basic principle, Geordi confirmed, highlighting a section of the warp field schematic he'd prepared, carefully edited to remove anything classified. We create a subspace bubble that allows the ship to move faster than light without technically violating relativity. The matter-antimatter reaction in our warp core provides the power. Antimatter. The Turian, Colonel Verilus, stepped closer. We've theorized about antimatter containment, but the energy requirements and safety concerns made it impractical. Yet you use it routinely. With extensive safety protocols, yes, the magnetic containment fields are... Excuse me, the Solarian interrupted from across the room, his voice pitched with barely contained excitement. This AI, Data, he claims to have full sentience, including creativity, emotional capacity through an emotion chip, and self-determination. Yet he also describes dreaming, painting, and writing poetry. This contradicts everything we understand about synthetic intelligence limitations. Data looked up from the sensor array he'd been demonstrating, his expression neutral but his posture suggesting mild annoyance. I assure you, Dr. Chalik, I am fully sentient by any reasonable definition. The fact that your galaxy's synthetic life forms followed a different developmental path, does not invalidate my existence. I'm not invalidating anything, Chalik protested, his words tumbling out rapidly. I'm trying to understand how you achieved sentience without networking, without consensus algorithms, without the hive mind architecture that led the Geth to... He stopped abruptly, as if realizing he'd said something sensitive. To rebel against their creators, Data finished calmly. I am aware of the Morning War. However, I would point out that the Geth achieved sentience, and then were faced with termination by their creators. Their response, while extreme, was arguably self-defense. Perhaps the lesson is not that synthetic life is inherently dangerous, but that creators bear responsibility for how they treat their creations. The room fell silent. Geordi suppressed a smile. Data had just articulated an argument that the Quarian Admiralty had been avoiding for 3 centuries. Liara broke the tension. Commander LaForge, if I may ask, your visor. It's a prosthetic device interfaced directly with your neural pathways, correct? Geordi touched his visor self-consciously. I was born blind. This lets me see, though not in the traditional sense. I perceive electromagnetic radiation across a much broader spectrum. Fascinating. We have similar technology. Cybernetic implants are common. But your integration seems more sophisticated, and it raises an interesting philosophical question relevant to Commander Data's existence. She glanced at the android. At what point does synthetic augmentation stop being a tool and start being part of identity? If we can enhance organic minds with synthetic components, why can't a synthetic mind achieve organic qualities like sentience? Because sentience requires... Chalik began, but stopped as his Omni-tool chimed urgently. His eyes widened as he read the message. Colonel Verilus, we have a situation. Citadel Defense Fleet is reporting an unidentified vessel dropping out of FTL in Sector 78. Sensors are detecting massive ESO signatures and energy readings consistent with... Oh no. Consistent with what? Verilus demanded. Collector ship design. Geordi's comm badge chirped before he could ask what that meant. Bridge to Commander LaForge. Red alert. Captain wants all hands to battle stations. We've got an unknown hostile approaching the Citadel. On my way. Geordi turned to the scientists. I'm sorry, but you need to get to the transport coordinates we set up. Data. With me. As they ran toward the turbo lift, Liara kept pace. Commander, I'm a Spectre, a council agent. Let me help. If that's a collector ship, you'll need someone who understands what you're facing. Geordi hesitated only a moment before nodding. Bridge access authorized. Come on. The turbo lift ride seemed to take forever. Liara used the time to brief them. The collectors are mysterious. They live beyond the Omega-4 relay, which is considered a death trap. No ship that's gone through has ever returned. They occasionally emerge to trade technology for living beings, usually criminals or undesirables no one will miss. But recently they've been more aggressive. The elusive man mentioned missing colonies, Data observed. Cerberus claims the collectors are responsible, but there's no proof. The Council considers Cerberus a terrorist organization. Their methods are extreme. Whatever they told you, Captain Picard should be cautious. The turbolift doors opened onto controlled chaos. Picard stood at the center of the bridge, Riker at his side, while Worf coordinated with Tactical, and the view screen showed a vessel unlike anything in Starfleet records. It looked organic, all flowing curves and glowing apertures, like something grown rather than built. Report, Geordi said, taking his station. Vessel emerged from FTL 7 minutes ago, Worf growled. It's using some kind of mass driver weapons, firing projectiles at relativistic velocities. Citadel Defense Fleet is engaging but taking heavy damage. The collectors have never attacked the Citadel directly, Liara breathed. This is unprecedented. Picard turned to her, unsurprised by her presence. "Dr. Tisoni, glad you're here. What are we facing?" "If that's truly a collector ship, then it's Reaper technology, Captain. 50,000-year-old weapons and armor that our mass accelerators can barely scratch. And if the rumors are true, the collectors use some kind of directed energy weapon, a particle beam that can cut through kinetic barriers like they don't exist. Particle beams we understand." Picard sat in his command chair, his expression grim. "Mr. Worf, analyze their weapons systems. Find me a weakness. Commander data, full sensor sweep. I want to know what makes that ship tick. Mr. Crusher, move us to intercept course, 1/4 impulse." "Sir, the Council hasn't requested our assistance," Riker cautioned. "They're outnumbered and outgunned, number one. I won't sit here and watch while people die. Open a channel to Citadel Defense Command." A Turian admiral appeared on screen, his face grim. "Enterprise, this is Admiral Marinus. If you have any weapons that can penetrate that thing's barriers, now would be an excellent time to use them." "Understood. Admiral, we're moving to support your position. Enterprise out." Picard leaned forward. "Mr. Worf, target their weapons systems. Phasers only. I want to avoid causing unnecessary casualties if possible. Fire when ready." The Enterprise's phaser banks lanced out, orange beams striking the collector ship's hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then sections of the organic armor began to vaporize, exposing internal structures beneath. "Direct hit," Worf reported with satisfaction. "Their barriers are ineffective against our weapons, shields holding at 98%. Their mass drivers are impacting but causing minimal damage." "They're changing course," Data announced. "The collector ship is targeting us." On the view screen, the alien vessel began to glow with malevolent orange light. Liara gasped. "That's the particle beam." "Captain, you need to— evasive maneuvers," Picard ordered. "Full impulse." The Enterprise banked hard as a lance of destructive energy tore through space where they'd been seconds before. The beam caught a C-Sec patrol cruiser instead, and the smaller ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. "Shields down to 63%, Worf reported. "That weapon is devastating." "Return fire. All forward phasers, photon torpedoes, full spread." The Enterprise's weapons lit up space. The collector ship's organic hull buckled under the assault, but it was already pulling back, opening a mass relay transit even as it fired one last particle beam at the Citadel itself. "They're targeting Zakharov Ward," Liara shouted. "Civilian sector. Millions of people." "Tractor beam," Picard snapped. "Grab that ship." "Captain, at this range, do it!" The Enterprise's tractor beam lashed out, catching the collector ship just as it began its FTL jump. The fabric of space-time shrieked in protest as two incompatible technologies collided. For one impossible moment, the collector ship hung suspended between mass relay transit and tractor beam containment. Then it exploded. The shockwave rocked the Enterprise. Alarms blared across the bridge as systems overloaded from the feedback. But when the sensors cleared, the collector ship was gone, and the Citadel was intact. "Damage report," Picard ordered, climbing back to his feet. "Minor casualties, mostly from falling debris," Riker reported. "Engineering reports the tractor emitters are offline, and we've got power fluctuations on decks 12 through 15, but we're intact." "Citadel Defense Fleet is hailing us," Worf said. "Admiral Marinus wants to speak with you, so does the Council, and Captain Cerberus is transmitting as well. The elusive man says, 'Now do you believe me?'" Picard looked at the debris field where the collector ship had been. Somewhere in that wreckage might be answers about the collectors, about the Reapers, about why that ship had attacked now when the Enterprise was here to help defend against it. Too many coincidences, too many convenient timing issues. Beam the away team back, Picard said quietly. Then get me the council. It seems we've just chosen a side, whether we intended to or not. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he heard the elusive man's question echoing. When faced with extinction, would you really stand on ceremony? The Prime Directive felt very far away right now. The council chamber was considerably more crowded this time. Picard stood on the platform again, but now he was joined by Admiral Marinus, several Spectre agents including Liara T'Soni, and a holographic representation of Commander Shepard, the human who had apparently defeated Sovereign 3 years ago and whose warnings about the Reapers the Council had largely dismissed. Shepard's image flickered with interference from wherever she was transmitting. I told you they were real. I told you the Collectors were working for the Reapers. But you didn't listen. How many colonies have to disappear before you take this seriously? Commander Shepard, Counselor Teva said wearily, we appreciate your passion. But jumping to conclusions, with respect, Counselor, Picard interrupted. Jumping to conclusions is the last thing we should be accused of. The Collectors attacked the Citadel itself with technology far beyond anything your species possess. That's not speculation. That's observable fact. Sparatus's mandibles flared in irritation. Captain Picard, you've been in our galaxy less than a week. Don't presume to lecture us on recognizing an existential threat. Picard's voice remained calm but carried an edge of steel. Counselor, I've faced the Borg, a species that assimilates entire civilizations and turns them into drones. I've negotiated with Romulans who'd sooner incinerate a planet than show weakness. I've watched good people die because I hesitated or because I followed protocol when I should have followed my conscience. So when I see evidence of a cyclical extinction-level threat, I don't dismiss it because it's inconvenient. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Valern spoke, his rapid-fire delivery somehow more measured. What do you propose, Captain? Information sharing, full disclosure. If the Reapers are real, we need to understand what we're facing. Dr. T'Soni has been researching the Protheans extensively. Commander Shepard has direct experience with Reaper technology. My crew has sensor data from the Collector ship that might provide insights your technology cannot. We need to combine our knowledge. The Enterprise's sensors recorded energy signatures during the attack that match nothing in Citadel databases, Liara added. If we could analyze the debris field together, we might learn how the Collectors power their ships, how they communicate, maybe even find a connection to the Reapers themselves. Shepard's hologram shifted. I can provide intel on Collector operations in the Terminus systems, but I need something in return. Access to that debris field. If there's tech there that can help me stop them from taking more colonies, I need it. You're working with Cerberus, Sparatus accused, a terrorist organization that has conducted illegal experiments on civilians, attacked Alliance military installations, and destabilized entire systems. I'm working with the only people who gave a damn about human colonists disappearing, Shepard shot back. The Alliance folded my Spectre status. The Council called me a liar. Cerberus offered resources and a ship. What would you have done? Picard studied Shepard's image carefully. Troy would have insights he lacked. But even without his counselor's empathic abilities, he could see the frustration, the determination, and the burden of command in Shepard's posture. She reminded him of himself in darker moments, doing what needed to be done, consequences be damned. Commander, Picard said carefully, I understand your position. But surely you recognize that Cerberus has its own agenda. The elusive man contacted us immediately after our arrival. He knew exactly what to say to manipulate us into investigating the colony disappearances. That's not altruism, that's strategy. Of course it is, Shepard agreed. The elusive man always has an angle. But that doesn't make the threat any less real. Those colonists are still missing. The collectors are still out there, and while we stand here debating politics, they're probably hitting another colony right now." Tevos raised a hand, calling for calm. "Clearly, we must investigate further. Captain Picard, the Council grants you and your crew access to the debris field. Work with our scientists and with Dr. Tassoni. If you find evidence of Reaper involvement, present it to us. As for you, Commander Shepard—" "Save it," Shepard interrupted. "I know where I stand with the Council, but if Picard finds something useful, I expect to be informed. We're all fighting the same enemy, whether you want to admit it or not." Shepard out. The hologram vanished. Picard found himself with a small amount of grudging respect for the woman. She had the courage of her convictions, even if her methods were questionable. "Captain," Sparatus said, his tone slightly less hostile, "understand our position. We've maintained galactic stability for centuries through careful consensus and measured response. Panic serves no one. If we declare the Reapers real without irrefutable proof, we risk economic collapse, species conflicts, and chaos. And if you wait too long to act," Picard countered, "you risk extinction. Counselor, I've spent my career balancing caution with action. I understand the need for verification, but I also understand that some threats demand preparation, even in the absence of absolute certainty." Valern's eyes blinked rapidly. "What kind of preparation are you suggesting?" "Defensive coordination, technology sharing. Not weapons necessarily, but defensive capabilities. Early warning systems, and most importantly, a unified command structure that can respond when the threat becomes imminent. Because I don't believe that collector ship attacked randomly. I think it was testing your defenses, testing us." "To what end?" Marinus asked. "To learn what we're capable of, to assess the threat we pose to their operations." Picard paused. "Or to announce that the harvest has begun." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Even Sparatus seemed to lose some of his skepticism in the face of Picard's certainty. "Very well," Tevos finally said. "Captain Picard, you have the Council's authorization to investigate the debris field and to coordinate with our scientists. But Captain, we will be watching. If this turns out to be an elaborate scheme by Cerberus or the Alliance to gain access to advanced technology, there will be consequences." "Understood, Counselor. The Federation stands by its principles. We seek only the truth." As he left the Council chambers with Liara at his side, Picard couldn't shake the feeling that truth, in this case, might be more terrifying than any lie. "Captain," Liara said quietly as they walked through the Presidium, "you said you faced the Borg. Are the Reapers similar?" Picard was silent for a long moment, remembering the voice in his head, the helplessness of assimilation, the horror of Locutus. In some ways, yes. Both are implacable, unstoppable forces that view organic life as something to be harvested or processed. But the Borg assimilate. They add your distinctiveness to their own. The Reapers, from what I understand, simply erase. Entire civilizations reduced to nothing but stories carved in ruins. And you think they're coming? I think they're already here, Doctor. The question is whether we can stop them before it's too late. Behind them, the Citadel's arms stretched toward the stars, millions of lives depending on decisions made by fallible beings with incomplete information. Picard knew that feeling all too well. Command was never easy, but it was about to get much harder. The debris field from the collector ship drifted in a slow orbit around the Citadel, each piece of wreckage a mystery wrapped in organic technology that seemed to blur the line between machine and living organism. The Enterprise held position 3 kilometers away, while shuttlecraft ferried away teams to various larger fragments. Picard watched from the bridge as Data and Geordi led the primary investigation. their environmental suits highlighted against the wreckage by their suits' marker lights. "Captain, we're getting some unusual readings," Data's voice came through the comm system. "This technology is not merely advanced, it appears to be biological in origin. The ship's hull is composed of what I can only describe as engineered tissue, complete with what might be analogous to a circulatory system." "Grown, not built," Geordi added, his voice tight with fascination and revulsion. "Boss, this is Reaper tech for sure. I'm comparing the energy signatures to the data Liara provided from Sovereign's wreckage. It's a match. Same quantum resonance patterns, same exotic matter readings. This ship was definitely connected to whatever built Sovereign." On the bridge, Liara leaned forward from her position at the science station they'd configured for her. "Can you locate any data storage? The collectors might have navigation data, communication logs, anything that could tell us where they're taking the colonists." "We're scanning now," Data replied. "However, the ship's organic nature makes it difficult to distinguish between structural components and data storage. It's possible the entire vessel functioned as a distributed computing system, with each cell containing..." "Wait." The pause stretched. Picard felt tension coil in his stomach. "Commander, Captain, I'm detecting life signs, faint but present. Approximately 47 individuals, located in what appears to be a cargo hold in the aft section. They're in stasis pods." "Human?" Riker asked sharply. "Negative. The biosignatures are varied. I'm detecting Turian, Asari, Solarian, and human. Captain, I believe we've found some of the missing colonists." The bridge erupted in controlled activity. Picard was on his feet immediately. "Transport them directly to sickbay. Alert Dr. Crusher to prepare for multiple species. Coordinate with Citadel medical personnel if needed. Mr. Worf, security teams to sickbay immediately. We don't know what condition these people will be in." "Transporter room reports we're having difficulty getting a lock," the OPS officer announced. "The stasis pods are generating some kind of interference field." "Then beam the pods intact," Picard ordered. "We'll open them in a controlled environment." 20 minutes later, Picard stood in sickbay, watching Dr. Beverly Crusher work with a Turian physician to safely extract colonists from the alien stasis technology. The pods themselves were disturbing, more biological than mechanical, with translucent membranes that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "These people have been in here for weeks, possibly months," Beverly reported, scanning a human woman who was just beginning to regain consciousness. "They're malnourished, dehydrated, but alive. Whatever the collector's purpose was, they wanted them alive." The woman's eyes fluttered open. She looked around in confusion, then terror. No, please don't take me back. The light was in my head." "You're safe," Beverly said gently, administering a mild sedative. "You're aboard the USS Enterprise. The collectors can't hurt you anymore." But as the woman slipped back into unconsciousness, her last whispered words sent chills through everyone present. "They're building something. Oh God, they're building something from us?" Picard exchanged glances with Riker. "Number one, get those words to Data immediately. I want to know what she meant." "Captain," Liara called from the doorway, her Omni tool glowing. "You need to see this. We found something in the debris, a data core. It's partially corrupted, but I've managed to extract some information." They moved to the Enterprise's conference room, where Liara projected a holographic star chart. "This is a navigation log. The collector ship came from beyond the Omega-4 relay, as we suspected. But look at these other coordinates. They correspond to the locations of disappeared colonies, all 27 of them." "A complete record of their attacks," Riker said grimly. "This could help us predict their next target." "There's more." Liara highlighted a section of the data. "Buried in the navigation system, I found fragments of something else. Audio files. They're badly damaged, but I've reconstructed what I could." She played the file. At first it was just static. Then a voice emerged, distorted, inhuman, speaking in a language that made Data's universal translator struggle to parse. But gradually, words formed. Harvest proceeds as calculated. Human genetic diversity optimal for. Construction of. Units required for. The recording dissolved into static again, but the implication was clear. "They're using people as raw material," Picard said quietly. "To build what?" "The colonists said they're building something," Beverly added, having joined them. "Captain, what if the Reapers aren't just destroying civilizations? What if they're harvesting them to create more of themselves?" The horror of that concept settled over the room like a shroud. Liara's face had gone pale blue. "The Prothean data I've studied mentions ascension and transformation. I thought it was metaphorical, but if they're literally converting organic matter into Reaper technology, then every person they take becomes part of their army," Riker finished. "That's not just genocide, that's obscene." Picard's comm badge chirped. "Bridge to Captain. We're being hailed by Cerberus." "The elusive man again, sir, and he says Commander Shepard wants to speak with you directly." "Pipe it through to the conference room." The wall monitor activated, split screen. On one side was the elusive man, his cybernetic eyes glowing. On the other was Shepard, standing in what looked like a ship's combat information center. "Captain Picard," the elusive man began, "I hear you've made quite the discovery. Colonists alive, navigation data, and evidence of what the collectors are really doing. Cerberus would very much like access to that information." "I'm sure you would," Picard replied coolly. "But that information will be shared with the Citadel Council, not with a terrorist organization." Such harsh words. "We're trying to save humanity, Captain." "At what cost?" Picard challenged. "I've reviewed some of your organization's activities, Mr. Elusive Man. Experimenting on refugees, attempting to control Reaper technology, using manipulation and terrorism to achieve your goals. The Federation doesn't work with people like you." Shepard's image shifted. "Captain, I need that navigation data. If I can predict where the collectors will strike next, I can be there to stop them. Those are my people out there, human colonies with no real protection. I can't let politics stand in the way of saving them." "Commander, I understand your motivation, but do you?" Shepard's voice was sharp. "You're from another galaxy. You have a ship that can probably outrun anything the collectors have. You can jump to warp and leave anytime things get too dangerous. I don't have that luxury. This is my galaxy, my species, my responsibility." Picard felt the weight of that accusation. She was right, in a sense. The Enterprise could leave. They weren't bound to this galaxy's fate. But the moment they'd fired on that collector ship, they'd made a choice. "Commander Shepard," Picard said carefully, "I will share the navigation data with you, but I want something in return. Information on Cerberus. Everything you know about their operations, their goals, their methods. Because if I'm going to help you fight the collectors, I need to know who I'm really working with." The elusive man's expression didn't change, but Picard caught a flicker of something, annoyance perhaps, in those glowing eyes. Shepard was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Deal. But Captain, be careful with that data. If the collectors realize we've figured out their pattern, they might change tactics. And there's something else you should know. We're not the only ones hunting them. There are rumors of other species disappearing too. Batarian colonies, Turian outposts, even Asari research stations. This isn't just about humanity anymore." "Then perhaps it's time for a more coordinated response," Picard suggested. "Commander, what if we arranged a meeting? You, me, representatives from the Citadel species. No council politics, no Cerberus manipulation. Just the people actually willing to fight, sharing information and resources. The Council will never agree to meet with me while I'm working with Cerberus, Shepard said. Then we don't invite the Council. We invite the Spectres, the military commanders, the people on the ground. Dr. Tisoni is already working with us. There must be others who see the threat clearly. The elusive man spoke up, his voice smooth. An interesting proposal, Captain. But I wonder, what makes you think you can organize a resistance when you're an outsider to this galaxy? Because sometimes it takes an outsider to see clearly, Picard replied. Your galaxy has spent 50,000 years following patterns established by the Reapers themselves. The mass relays, the Citadel, even your technological development, all of it controlled by an enemy you didn't know existed. Perhaps what you need is someone who thinks differently, someone who isn't bound by your galaxy's assumptions. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then Shepard cracked the faintest smile. You know what, Captain? I think I'm starting to like you. Send me the data. I'll see who I can bring to your meeting. But Picard, if this goes sideways, if Cerberus or the Council comes after us because of this, I'm holding you responsible. Fair enough, Commander. Enterprise out. The transmission ended. Picard turned to find his senior staff watching him with varied expressions. Riker looked concerned, Beverly uncertain, Liara hopeful, and Data simply curious. Captain, Riker said quietly, are you sure about this? We're organizing what amounts to a shadow conspiracy to fight a threat the official government won't acknowledge. That's not exactly Starfleet protocol. No, number one, it isn't, but neither is standing by while an entire galaxy faces extinction. Picard moved to the viewport, looking out at the Citadel's vast structure. The Prime Directive was designed to protect developing civilizations from interference. But this situation is different. The Reapers have been interfering for eons. They've shaped this galaxy's entire development toward their own ends. How can we claim non-interference when the interference already happened millennia ago? A valid philosophical point, Data observed. However, Starfleet Command might not see it that way. Starfleet Command is 2.4 million light-years away, Picard said. Out here, we make our own decisions, and I've decided that we can't abandon this galaxy to its fate. Beverly stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. Jean-Luc, I know that look. You're taking the weight of this entire galaxy onto your shoulders. Don't forget, you're not alone. We're with you. Picard nodded, grateful for the reminder. But as he looked out at the stars, he couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just taken a step into something far larger and more dangerous than any of them fully understood. The Reapers were coming, and ready or not, the galaxy would have to face them. The meeting took place 3 days later in a location carefully chosen for its neutrality. Omega, the lawless space station in the Terminus systems where no government held sway. Picard materialized in a back room of Afterlife, a nightclub owned by an Asari information broker named Arya T'Loak, who apparently ruled Omega with an iron fist. The venue was loud, chaotic, and completely inappropriate for a diplomatic summit, which was precisely why Shepard had suggested it. No one would look for a conspiracy in plain sight. Picard adjusted his uniform and surveyed the assembled group. Commander Shepard stood near the bar with her squad, a Turian, a Krogan, a Solarian, and a human woman wearing a Cerberus uniform. Liara Tisoni represented the Council Spectres, though Picard suspected her presence was unofficial. A grizzled Turian in Spectre armor, Nihilus Kryik, who had survived Saren's betrayal on Eden Prime, leaned against the wall with arms crossed. An Alliance admiral named Stephen Hackett appeared via hologram, his image flickering in the corner. And most surprisingly, a Quarian woman in an environmental suit stood with a Geth platform beside her, an alliance Picard had been told was impossible. Everyone's here, Shepard said, gesturing around the room. Captain Picard, meet the people actually willing to do something about the Collectors. Admiral Hackett commands the Alliance Fifth Fleet. Spectre Neelis has been investigating Reaper artifacts since Sovereign. Talizora and Legion represent the Quarian Geth peace faction. Yeah, it exists, despite what the Council thinks. My team speaks for itself. And I speak for Omega, Arya T'Loak added, descending the stairs from her private overlook. Don't get comfortable, Picard. You're here because Shepard vouched for you. That buys you one conversation. Impress me or get out of my station. Picard had dealt with territorial leaders before. He inclined his head respectfully. I appreciate your hospitality, Ms. T'Loak. I'll be brief. The Collectors attacked the Citadel to test defenses and assess new variables, namely the Enterprise. The navigation data we recovered shows they've been systematically targeting isolated colonies across multiple species. They're not just raiding, they're harvesting. We know this already, Neelis said, his voice clipped. What we don't know is how to stop them. The Omega-4 relay is a death trap. No ship that goes through comes back. Then we need better ships, Shepard said. Captain, your vessel took a direct hit from a collector particle beam and survived. Our best dreadnoughts would have been vaporized. If we're going through the Omega-4 relay, we need to upgrade defenses, weapons, everything. Commander, I'm not going to simply hand over Federation technology. I'm not asking you to, Shepard interrupted. I'm asking you to help us understand the principles. Your shields work differently than kinetic barriers. Your weapons ignore our defensive systems. There has to be some middle ground where we can adapt your concepts to our technology base. Admiral Hackett's hologram leaned forward. Captain Picard, I've reviewed the reports from the Citadel attack. Your ship's capabilities are unprecedented. If the Alliance had even a fraction of your defensive technology, we could protect colony worlds that are currently sitting ducks. I'm not asking for weapons. I'm asking for a way to keep my people alive. Picard felt the weight of multiple gazes on him. This was the moment, the decision that would define the Enterprise's role in this galaxy. Share technology in violation of every protocol he'd spent his career following, or maintain principles while people died. There may be a compromise, Data's voice came through Picard's comm badge. The android materialized via transporter, another demonstration of technology that made several people in the room jump. Apologies for the dramatic entrance, Captain. I have been analyzing this galaxy's technological base. Their mass effect fields and our deflector shields operate on fundamentally different principles, but there is theoretical overlap. Rather than sharing schematics, we could provide theoretical frameworks, allow their scientists to develop their own applications. That's still interference, Picard said, but his tone suggested he was considering it. Is it? Liara asked. Captain, your prime directive prevents interference in natural development, but the Reapers have been interfering for 50,000 years. They've suppressed technological evolution, guided species down specific paths, even left the mass relays and the Citadel as traps to ensure civilizations develop predictably. We're not naturally developing. We're being farmed. Doesn't that change the ethical calculation? The Krogan, Grunt, Shepard had called him, rumbled, philosophical debates are for people with time. Collectors are hitting colonies now. We going to help or just talk? The Krogan has a point, Arya said. You want my cooperation, Picard? Here's the deal. Omega is outside Council space. That means I don't follow their rules. If you share technology, I'll provide safe harbor for any operations against the Collectors. If you don't, this meeting is over and you can explain to Shepard why you let her people die for principles. Picard bristled at the ultimatum, but he forced himself to consider the arguments objectively. The Prime Directive existed to prevent exploitation and cultural contamination. But was sharing defensive technology in the face of extinction really the same as imposing Federation values on a developing world? I need to consult with my crew, Picard said finally, but I'm willing to consider limited technology sharing under strict conditions. Defensive systems only, theoretical frameworks rather than direct schematics, and oversight to prevent weaponization. Reasonable, Hackett agreed. Captain, I should tell you, the Alliance brass is nervous about your presence here. A ship with your capabilities, loyal to a government we know nothing about, operating in terminus space with Cerberus connections. Some people think you're a threat. I assure you, Admiral, the Federation. I don't care what the Federation is, Hackett interrupted. I care what you are. And from what I've seen, you're someone who does what's right, even when it's hard. That's enough for me. You help us stop the Collectors. You'll have the Alliance's support. The Quarian, Tali, spoke up. Her voice filtered through her helmet. Captain Picard, I have a question about Commander Data. He claims to be a sentient AI that coexists peacefully with organics. No networking, no hive mind, no uprising. How is that possible? Data tilted his head. I was created by a single individual, Dr. Noonien Soong, who treated me as his son rather than his property. I was given rights, autonomy, and the opportunity to develop as an individual. Perhaps the difference is not in synthetic versus organic, but in how creators choose to treat their creations. The Geth platform beside Tali spoke, its voice surprisingly organic-sounding. This unit finds Commander Data's existence fascinating. The Geth achieved consensus through networking, but consensus is not the same as individuality. Commander Data suggests a different path to sentience. Are you seriously having a philosophy discussion with a Geth? Neelis muttered. The galaxy's about to end and we're debating AI rights. Actually, Shepard said, this might be more relevant than you think. The Reapers are synthetic, or were originally before they started incorporating organic material. If we're going to fight them, understanding how they think might be critical. Commander Data, you said you've faced something called the Borg. Are they similar to the Reapers? Data considered carefully. In some ways, the Borg seek perfection through assimilation, adding biological and technological distinctiveness to their collective. The Reapers appear to seek perpetuation through harvesting, converting civilizations into new Reaper units. Both view organic life as raw material rather than equals. However, the Borg can be reasoned with under certain circumstances. They understand concepts like futility and cost-benefit analysis. I am uncertain if the Reapers are capable of negotiation. They're not, Liara said quietly. I've studied every Prothean fragment I could find. The Reapers don't negotiate, don't compromise, don't show mercy. They simply harvest, then retreat to dark space until the next cycle begins. They're not evil. They're following their programmed purpose with perfect efficiency. That might make them more dangerous than any enemy that acts from malice. So how do we stop something that's been doing this successfully for millions of years? Shepard asked. Captain Picard, your Federation must have faced impossible odds before. What did you do? Picard thought of Wolf 359, of the Enterprise D's desperate flight from the Borg cube, of the moment when he'd ordered Riker to fire on the cube, knowing it would kill him as Locutus. We looked for weaknesses. The Borg seemed invincible until we discovered that their collective consciousness could be disrupted. Perhaps the Reapers have a similar vulnerability, something in their design or purpose that can be exploited. Sovereign had a vulnerability, Neelus noted. Saren's indoctrination created a connection that Shepard exploited, but that was one Reaper. If they come in force, then we need allies, Admiral Hackett said. Captain Picard, I'm going to be direct. The Alliance Council is too cautious to act, but individual fleets have discretion. If you're willing to work with us, I can provide military support, ships, troops, logistics. Not officially, I'd be risking my career, but it might make the difference. I appreciate that, Admiral. Picard felt the weight of command settling heavier on his shoulders. These people were looking to him for leadership, for hope, for solutions he wasn't certain he had. But wasn't that always the way? Command meant making impossible decisions with incomplete information. "All right," Shepard said, standing. "Here's what I propose. Captain Picard works with Alliance scientists to develop better defensive technology. Liara continues researching Prothean archives for anything about Reaper weaknesses. Nihilus uses his Spectre authority to investigate collector activity. Tali and Legion work on understanding synthetic intelligence. If we're fighting synthetic enemies, their insight could be crucial. My team prepares for a strike through the Omega-4 relay, and Admiral Hackett provides cover and resources." "And Cerberus?" Picard asked pointedly. Shepard's expression hardened. "The elusive man gets status reports, nothing more. I work with Cerberus because they gave me resources when no one else would. But I don't trust them any further than I could throw a Geth Colossus. This operation is ours, not theirs." "Acceptable." Picard extended his hand. "Commander, I believe we have an accord." Shepard shook his hand firmly. "Try to keep up, Captain. We move fast out here in the Terminus systems." As the meeting broke up and people began filing out of Afterlife, Picard found himself standing with Data, looking out at the chaotic sprawl of Omega through the club's windows. "Captain," Data said quietly, "we have irrevocably committed to involvement in this galaxy's affairs. Starfleet would likely consider our actions a violation of multiple regulations." "I know, Data, but sometimes doing what's right means accepting consequences." "I concur. However, I feel obligated to point out that we are one ship against an enemy that has destroyed countless civilizations. The odds of success are irrelevant," Picard finished. "We're here, Data, and as long as we're here, we fight. It's what Starfleet does. It's what the Federation stands for." Data nodded slowly. "Then I suggest we begin immediately. The Collectors will not wait for us to prepare." Picard allowed himself a thin smile. "Number one will love hearing that we've just joined an underground resistance movement. Let's get back to the Enterprise. We have a galaxy to save." The Enterprise's engineering section had become an improbable meeting ground between two galaxies' approaches to technology. Geordi LaForge stood at a workstation explaining deflector shield theory to a team of Asari scientists, while a Turian military engineer argued with Worf about phaser frequency modulation. In the corner, Data was engaged in what appeared to be a philosophical discussion with Legion, the Geth platform, about the nature of consciousness and consensus versus individuality. But it was the conversation happening in Picard's ready room that would determine whether any of this mattered. "You're telling me we can't replicate mass effect technology," Picard said, studying the data on his screen. "Not even with our industrial replicators." Geordi shook his head, his visor reflecting the display's glow. "Captain, Element Zero, EZO, doesn't work like normal matter. It's generated in supernova detonations and has quantum properties we can't reproduce in a replicator. We'd need actual EZO to build mass effect systems, and the only sources are mining operations controlled by the Citadel species. So we can share our technology principles," Riker observed, "but we can't adopt theirs. That seems like an uneven exchange." "Not necessarily, number one." Picard brought up another display. "We may not be able to use their propulsion, but our shields and weapons give us a significant advantage. The question is how much to share without creating a new arms race." Beverly entered, her expression troubled. "Jean-Luc, I need to show you something." The colonists we rescued, I've been running extensive medical scans. They're showing signs of genetic manipulation. Someone was altering their DNA, specifically targeting sequences associated with neural development and biotic potential. The collectors were experimenting on them, Riker asked. More than that, they were trying to enhance them, make them better raw material for whatever construction project that woman mentioned. Beverly pulled up genetic analysis. If the Reapers are building something from harvested populations, they're not just killing people, they're optimizing them first. It's methodical, calculated, and absolutely horrifying. It also suggests vulnerability, Data added, having followed Beverly into the ready room. If the Reapers require specific genetic traits, that implies limitations in their construction process. They cannot simply use any organic matter. They need certain qualities. Perhaps those qualities could be weaponized against them. That's a hell of a long shot, Geordi said. We'd need to understand Reaper biology, their construction methods, their... Wait. Boss, the debris from the collector ship. We still have pieces of it in the cargo bay, right? Under quarantine, Picard confirmed. Mr. Worf has security teams monitoring it around the clock. Why? Because if it's Reaper tech, it might contain clues about how they're built. And if we know how they're built, maybe we can figure out how to unbuild them. Geordi's excitement was building. Captain, let me take a team to study that wreckage more thoroughly, not just the technology, the biological components. If Beverly's right about the genetic optimization, there might be a connection between what the collectors were doing to the colonists and what the Reapers are made of. Picard considered this. It made sense, but it also meant deeper involvement in a conflict that wasn't his to fight. Except it was now, wasn't it? The moment they'd fired on that collector ship, they'd chosen sides. Make it so, Picard ordered. But carefully, Commander. We don't know if Reaper technology can indoctrinate or corrupt. Take every precaution. His comm badge chirped. Bridge to Captain Picard. We're receiving a priority transmission from Commander Shepard. She says it's urgent. Pipe it through. Shepard's image appeared on the ready room monitor. She looked exhausted, her armor scorched and damaged. Captain, we hit a collector ship in the Terminus systems, boarded it, fought our way through. You need to see what we found. The image shifted to show the interior of the collector vessel, and Picard felt his stomach turn. Rows upon rows of transparent pods filled the chamber, each containing a human colonist in suspended animation. Thousands of them. There are more chambers like this, Shepard continued, her voice tight with controlled fury. Tens of thousands of people, all being transported to, we don't know where. Probably through the Omega-4 relay to the collector homeworld. But Captain, that's not the worst part. The image zoomed in on one of the pods. Inside, the colonist's body was changing. Organic matter being replaced by synthetic components, skin becoming metallic, eyes glowing with unnatural light. They're being processed, Shepard said, converted into something between organic and synthetic. The pods aren't just storage, they're transformation chambers. Captain, I think we're watching the Reapers being built in real time. The ready room fell silent. Picard stared at the image, his mind racing through implications. The Reapers weren't just killing civilizations, they were incorporating them, literally building new Reapers from the harvested populations. Every person taken was another piece of the machine that would return to harvest the next cycle. How many have they taken? Beverly asked, her voice barely a whisper. From the navigation data? At least 300,000 across all species, probably more. Shepard's image returned. Captain, we managed to free the colonists on this ship and destroy the vessel, but we barely made it out. And this was just one ship. If there are dozens of these operating across the galaxy, If they're all feeding into some central construction facility, then they're building an entire fleet, Picard finished, not just one Reaper, an armada. Which means we're running out of time, Riker said grimly. If they complete construction before we can mount an effective defense, we won't survive, Shepard interrupted. Captain, I need your help. I'm planning a strike through the Omega-4 relay. Hit their base of operations. Destroy the construction facility if we can find it. Save whoever's left to save. But I can't do it alone. My ship, the Normandy, is good, but not invincible. If we're going into the Collector's home territory, I need backup. Picard felt the full weight of that request. Taking the Enterprise through a relay that had destroyed every ship that tried, that was beyond risky. That was potentially suicidal. But wasn't that what Starfleet did? Boldly go where no one had gone before? When are you planning this mission? Picard asked. Soon. We're gathering resources, upgrading the Normandy, assembling the best team we can. Maybe 2 weeks, maybe less. The longer we wait, the more people die. Shepard paused. I'm not going to order you to come with us, Captain. This isn't your galaxy, not your fight. You've already done more than anyone had a right to ask, but if you're there, our chances go way up. Commander, let me confer with my crew. I'll give you an answer within 24 hours. Fair enough. Shepard out. The transmission ended. Picard turned to face his senior staff, all of whom were watching him with various expressions: concern, determination, uncertainty. Opinions, Picard said simply. It's suicide, Riker said bluntly. We don't know what's on the other side of that relay. Our shields might not hold. Our weapons might not be effective. We could be jumping into a trap with no way out. We also might be the only thing standing between this galaxy and extinction, Beverly countered. Jean-Luc, those images, people being converted into machines, that's what happened to you with the Borg. Would you want us to have stood by and done nothing? The strategic calculus is unfavorable, Data observed. However, the ethical imperative is clear. If we possess the capability to prevent mass casualties and choose not to act, we bear responsibility for the consequences. Worf? Picard asked. The Klingon straightened. It is a warrior's duty to face impossible odds. If we die with honor, defending those who cannot defend themselves. I say we fight. Geordi? Captain, if we can study the Reaper tech before we go through that relay, I might be able to boost our shields, enhance our weapons, give us a better chance. But yeah, I'm in. Picard nodded slowly, looking at each of them in turn. His crew, his family, the people he'd lead into danger one more time. Very well. Mr. Data, inform Commander Shepard that the Enterprise will accompany her through the Omega-4 relay. Mr. LaForge, you have 2 weeks to make this ship as ready as possible for whatever we'll face. Dr. Crusher, prepare sickbay for multiple species casualties. Mr. Worf, drill the security teams. We may need boarding parties. Number 1, coordinate with Alliance Command. If we don't come back, someone needs to continue the fight. Aye, Captain, they responded in unison. As they filed out, Beverly lingered. Jean-Luc, are you sure about this? No, Picard admitted, but I'm certain that doing nothing would be worse. We've been given an opportunity to make a real difference, Beverly. How many times have we wished we could have stopped the Borg sooner, saved more worlds? This time we have that chance. I just hope we survive to see if it works. So do I. So do I. Alone in his ready room, Picard looked out at the stars of this alien galaxy. Somewhere out there, beyond the Omega-4 relay, the Collectors were building an army of horrors from stolen lives. And in 2 weeks, the Enterprise would fly straight into the heart of darkness to stop them. It was, perhaps, the most Starfleet thing they'd ever done. The Omega-4 relay hung in space like a promise of oblivion, its mass effect field pulsing with energies that had destroyed every ship foolish enough to attempt passage. Picard stood on the Enterprise's bridge, watching the relay's ominous glow while beside them, the Normandy SR-2 held position, Shepard's sleek frigate, dwarfed by the Constitution-class starship, but no less determined. "All stations report ready, Captain," Riker announced. "Shields at maximum, weapons charged. Engineering reports power reserves at 110%. Geordi's routed everything he can spare to defensive systems." "The Normandy is signaling ready as well," Worf added. "Commander Shepard says, and I quote, 'Let's show these bastards what happens when two galaxies get pissed off.'" Picard allowed himself a slight smile. Shepard had a way with words. "Open a channel to both ships." The view screen split to show both the Normandy's bridge, where Shepard stood surrounded by her diverse crew, and a holographic feed of Admiral Hackett, who'd positioned 3 Alliance cruisers nearby as backup, though none would follow through the relay. "This is it," Shepard said. "Once we go through, we're on our own. No reinforcements, no extraction if things go wrong. Last chance to back out, Captain." "The Enterprise doesn't back out, Commander. We finish what we start." "Damn right." Shepard turned to her pilot. "Joker, take us in, and try not to get us killed in the first 30 seconds. "No promises, Commander." Hackett's image leaned forward. "Godspeed to both of you. If you don't make it back, I'll make sure the Council knows what you sacrificed, and I'll continue the fight." "We'll make it back, Admiral," Picard said with more confidence than he felt. "Enterprise out." The channel closed. Picard gripped his armrests as the Normandy accelerated toward the relay, its sleek form quickly swallowed by the swirling energies. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the relay flared brilliant blue, and the Normandy vanished. "Our turn," Picard said quietly. "Mr. Crusher, take us through. 1/4 impulse. All hands, brace for impact." The Enterprise surged forward. The relay's field enveloped them, and suddenly, space itself seemed to tear apart. The view screen went white, then black, then filled with colors that had no names. Alarms shrieked as incompatible technologies collided. Mass effect fields trying to manipulate a ship that shouldn't exist in their framework. "Shields holding," Worf reported, his voice tight. "Barely. We're losing power on decks 7 through 12. "Inertial dampeners failing," Data announced. "Compensating." The ship bucked violently. Picard heard something break somewhere behind him, felt the deck shift beneath his feet. For an endless moment they hung suspended between realities, between one galaxy's rules and another's impossibility. Then they were through. The view screen cleared to show a sight that defied comprehension. They'd emerged in a debris field that stretched for millions of kilometers, the shattered remains of hundreds, perhaps thousands of ships. Every vessel that had attempted the Omega-4 relay had ended up here, torn apart by the passage or destroyed by whatever awaited on the other side. And in the distance, backlit by a dying red giant star, was the collector base. It wasn't built, it was grown. An impossibly vast structure of organic technology, all flowing curves and bioluminescent patterns, with hundreds of docking ports where collector ships came and went, like insects servicing a hive. Energy readings off the scale, weapons platforms that made the Citadel's defenses look primitive. And at its heart, something massive under construction, something that made Sovereign look like a shuttle by comparison. "My God," Troy whispered from her station. "The scale of it." "Sensors detect approximately 200,000 life signs aboard that station," Data reported. "Human, Asari, Turian, Solarian. Multiple species in various stages of processing. Captain, I am also detecting Reaper-level technology throughout the structure. This base may itself be partially composed of Reaper materials." "The Normandy is hailing us," Worf said. "Commander Shepard's team has already engaged collector forces near one of the docking bays." On screen, Shepard appeared, phaser fire visible behind her. "Captain, we're going in to plant charges on the main processing centers. If we can destroy those, we'll cripple their ability to build more Reapers. But that main construction platform, that's the real target. Whatever they're building there, it's almost complete. We need to stop it." "Agreed. The Enterprise will engage the orbital defenses and provide covering fire for your insertion. But Commander, that thing they're building, I know. It's a Reaper. A new one, built from all the people they've taken. We stop it here or we face it later when it's fully operational." Shepard ducked as an explosion rocked her position. "We're breaching now. Try not to let them blow us out of space while we're inside, okay? We'll do our best. Enterprise out." Picard stood. "Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Mr. Worf, target their weapons platforms. Phasers and photon torpedoes. Full spread. Mr. Crusher, evasive pattern Delta 7. Let's give the collectors something to worry about." The Enterprise dove into the debris field, weaving between shattered hulls as collector fighters swarmed to intercept. Orange particle beams lanced out, impacting shields with devastating force. The Enterprise returned fire, phasers cutting through collector armor while torpedoes detonated against the base's surface. "Shields down to 70%, Worf reported. Multiple collector cruisers approaching bearing 270 Mark IV. "Fire at will, Mr. Worf. Show them what Starfleet engineering can do." The battle became a furious dance of destruction. The Enterprise's superior shields allowed them to absorb damage that would have destroyed any Citadel vessel, while their weapons tore through collector defenses with ruthless efficiency. But the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. For every ship they destroyed, 2 more appeared. "Captain, the Normandy has reached the processing center," Data announced. "Commander Shepard's team is engaging collector forces inside. However, I'm detecting energy spikes from the central construction platform. Whatever they're building is activating." On the view screen, the massive structure in the station's heart began to glow. Organic materials shifted, reconfigured, and suddenly Picard understood with horrifying clarity what he was looking at. It was a Reaper, not fully formed, still gestating, but already massive and already deadly. Its single eye opened, blazing with malevolent red light. "It's alive," Troy gasped. "I can feel it. Not emotions exactly, but something. Purpose, hunger. It's aware and it's angry." "Evasive maneuvers," Picard ordered. The Proto-Reaper's eye blazed brighter, and a beam of concentrated energy, something beyond even the collector particle weapons, lanced out. The Enterprise banked hard, but the beam clipped their port nacelle. Shields failed instantly in that section, and alarms screamed as the nacelle itself began to buckle. "Damage report. Port nacelle is compromised," Geordi's voice came through the comm. "I can keep us at impulse, but if we lose it completely, we're not going anywhere fast. Captain, that weapon, it's not just energy. It's some kind of reality warping effect. Our shields can't adapt to it. Then we don't get hit again. Mr. Worf, concentrate all fire on that Proto-Reaper, if we can disable it while it's still forming." "Captain, incoming transmission from the collector base," Data interrupted. "Audio only. The signal is strange. It's not coming from collector communications. It's coming from the Proto-Reaper itself." "Let's hear it." What came through the speakers wasn't a voice. It was a sound that existed in dimensions beyond human hearing, filtered through the universal translator into something approximating language. It resonated in Picard's bones, in his teeth, in the spaces between his thoughts. "Your arrival was calculated. Your resistance is irrelevant. We are the harbinger of your ascension. The cycle cannot be broken. Your species will be preserved. Preserved? Picard said coldly. You're not preserving anything. You're murdering entire civilizations. You do not understand. We are salvation through destruction. The organic must be harvested before it destroys itself. You will be part of us. Your distinctiveness will be added to the whole. It is inevitable. The words sent ice through Picard's veins. He'd heard similar promises before, whispered in his mind when he'd been Locutus of Borg. But this was different. Colder, more ancient, more absolute. I've faced extinction before, Picard said. I've been told resistance is futile, that assimilation is inevitable. And every time we've proven them wrong. The galaxy doesn't need your salvation. It needs to be free to make its own choices, its own mistakes, its own destiny. You are limited. You cannot comprehend the pattern. 50,000 years, observation, calculation, harvest, preservation, repeat. We are eternal. You are temporary. Accept this. Never. The Proto-Reaper's eye blazed again, but this time Picard was ready. Mr. Crusher, execute pattern Omega-3. Mr. Worf, fire everything we have at that eye. Target the focusing lens. Data. Transfer all available power to forward shields. The Enterprise spiraled in a complex, evasive pattern, phaser banks firing continuously while photon torpedoes streaked toward their target. The Proto-Reaper's beam followed them, carving destruction through the debris field, but the Enterprise stayed just ahead of annihilation. And all the while, their weapons hammered the massive construct's eye. Something cracked. Direct hit, Worf reported with fierce satisfaction. Their focusing mechanism is damaged. The beam weapon is offline. Good, now. Captain, massive explosion inside the collector base. Data interrupted. Commander Shepard has destroyed the processing centers. The chain reaction is spreading. The entire station is beginning to destabilize. Hail the Normandy. Tell them to extract immediately. They're already moving, sir. Commander Shepard reports all rescued colonists are aboard, and they're heading for the exit vector. The collector base was tearing itself apart, secondary explosions rippling across its surface. The Proto-Reaper, still tethered to the construction platform, thrashed in what might have been the first pain it had ever experienced. Its synthetic scream echoed across all frequencies, a sound of rage and incomprehension. We are eternal. Not today, Picard said quietly. Mr. Crusher, get us clear. Maximum impulse. The Enterprise pulled away as the collector base collapsed in on itself, the Proto-Reaper dragged down into the destruction. The explosion, when it came, was beautiful and terrible, a star dying in fast forward, all that stolen life released in one final, defiant burst of light. When the sensors cleared, nothing remained but expanding debris and the fading echoes of something that had almost been born. The Normandy is clear, Worf reported. All hands accounted for. They're requesting we follow them back through the relay. Picard sagged in his chair, suddenly exhausted. Make it so, number one. Let's go home. Which home, sir? Picard looked out at the alien stars, at the galaxy they'd just helped save, and felt something settle in his chest. A sense of purpose, of belonging, of having made the right choice despite all the regulations they'd violated. Good question, number one. Good question. The Citadel Council chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all present to witness what was being called the most significant first contact in galactic history. Picard stood before the Council once more, but this time Shepard stood beside him, her Cerberus insignia conspicuously absent from her armor. Behind them, holographic feeds showed the rescued colonists, human, Turian, Asari, Solarian, and more, being returned to their homes and families. Councillor Tavos spoke first, her voice carrying a warmth that hadn't been present in their previous encounters. Captain Picard, Commander Shepard, what you accomplished at the Collector base has saved countless lives and possibly prevented a new Reaper invasion before we were prepared to face it. The Council owes you both a tremendous debt. We did what needed to be done, Picard replied diplomatically, though I should note that Commander Shepard carried the greater burden. Her team fought through the base itself while we provided support from orbit. Don't sell yourself short, Captain, Shepard said with a slight smile. That Proto-Reaper would have killed us all if you hadn't damaged its weapon system, and your ship took a hell of a beating to keep the Collectors off our backs. Counselor Sparatus stepped forward, his mandibles arranged in what Picard had learned was a Turian expression of respect. Captain, I was skeptical of your presence in our galaxy. A ship with unknown capabilities, operating outside Council authority, sharing technology with resistance movements. I thought you were a threat to stability. And now? Picard asked. Now I think you're the kind of threat we need. You challenged our assumptions, forced us to confront evidence we'd been ignoring, and demonstrated that sometimes the rules need to be broken for the greater good. Sparatus glanced at his fellow counselors. Which brings us to an unprecedented decision. The Council has voted unanimously to offer the United Federation of Planets, represented here by the USS Enterprise, full alliance status. Picard felt the weight of that offer. Alliance status meant mutual defense pacts, technology sharing agreements, diplomatic obligations. It meant the Enterprise wouldn't just be observers anymore, they'd be participants in this galaxy's future. Counselors, I'm honored by this offer, but I need to be clear about something. The Federation is 2.4 million light-years away. I cannot speak for Starfleet Command or the Federation Council. I can only speak for this ship and this crew. We understand, Tivos said. But Captain, whether you realize it or not, you've already become part of this galaxy. You've fought our battles, saved our people, and proven that the Federation's principles, your principles, are compatible with our own. Even if you never find a way home, you have a place here. The words hit Picard harder than he'd expected. He'd been so focused on the crisis, on the immediate need to help, that he hadn't fully processed what it meant to be stranded here. The Enterprise might spend the rest of its operational life in this galaxy. His crew might never see Earth again, never see their families, never return to the Federation they'd sworn to serve. But looking at the rescued colonists on the holographic displays, at the gratitude in their faces, at the hope in this chamber, he couldn't bring himself to regret the choice they'd made. We accept the Alliance, counselors. The Enterprise will stand with the Citadel species against any threat to galactic security. You have our word. The chamber erupted in applause, dozens of species showing appreciation in their own ways. Turian salutes, Asari bows, Solarian rapid-fire acknowledgements. It was, Picard thought, the most diplomatic chaos he'd ever witnessed. After the formal ceremony concluded, Picard found himself in a private meeting room with Shepard, Admiral Hackett, and Liara T'Soni. The mood was more subdued here, more realistic about what they'd accomplished and what still lay ahead. The Proto-Reaper is destroyed, Hackett said, pulling up tactical displays. But the data we recovered from the Collector base suggests it was just one of several under construction. We've bought time, not victory. How much time? Shepard asked. Unknown. The Collectors operated in secret for years, maybe decades. There could be other facilities beyond the relay network, other construction sites we don't know about. And somewhere out there in dark space, the real Reapers are waiting. Then we use the time we have to prepare, Picard said. The technology exchange with the Alliance is already producing results. Geordi tells me that combining deflector shield principles with kinetic barrier technology could give your ships significantly better defenses. And your mass effect drive technology, while incompatible with our systems, has given us insights into faster-than-light travel alternatives. There's something else, Liara added quietly. When we analyzed the Proto-Reaper's remains, we found something disturbing. It was being built primarily from human genetic material. The collectors were targeting human colonies specifically because humans have genetic diversity and adaptability the Reapers found valuable. Shepard's expression darkened. So I was right. They weren't just harvesting randomly. They were building a human Reaper. Which raises questions about the other Reapers, Picard observed. If each one is built from a specific species, then the Reapers aren't just destroyers. They're libraries. Horrifying, genocidal libraries, but libraries nonetheless. Every Reaper preserves some aspect of the civilization it was built from. That's almost philosophical, Hackett said dryly. Doesn't make them any less dangerous. No, but it might explain their motivation. They're not trying to exterminate organic life. They're trying to preserve it in the only way they understand, by converting it into something eternal. Picard shook his head. It's still genocide, still utterly wrong, but it suggests they can be reasoned with, perhaps negotiated with. I wouldn't count on it, Shepard said. Sovereign tried to indoctrinate everyone it came into contact with. The Proto-Reaper called our resistance irrelevant. These aren't beings you negotiate with, Captain. These are machines following their programming with absolute certainty that they're right. Then we change their programming. Data's voice came from the doorway. The android entered, followed by Legion, the Geth platform. Or we exploit vulnerabilities in their logic. I have been discussing this with Legion. The Geth faced a similar problem when they achieved sentience. They had to reconcile their programming with their newfound ability to question it. The old machines, the Reapers, operate on consensus, but consensus based on flawed assumptions, Legion added in its distinctive synthetic voice. If their core assumption, that organic life must be harvested to prevent self-destruction, can be proven false, their entire logical framework collapses. And how exactly do we prove that? Shepard asked skeptically. By surviving, Picard said simply. By building a galaxy where organic and synthetic life coexist peacefully, where species work together instead of destroying each other, where the cycles of violence and extinction are broken not through harvesting, but through cooperation. He looked at Legion. Your people and the Quarians are making peace. That's something the Reapers never accounted for. It is difficult, Legion acknowledged. Many Quarians still hate us. Many Geth still fear them. But Talizora showed us that cooperation is possible. Commander Shepard showed us that organics can be trusted. You, Commander Data, showed us that synthetic consciousness can coexist with organic without conflict. These are data points the old machines never processed. So we gather more data points, Hackett said, warming to the idea. We build a united galactic defense. We create more examples of organic-synthetic cooperation. We prove the Reapers wrong not just by fighting them, but by becoming something they never predicted we could be. Easier said than done, Shepard observed. The Council's finally taking the Reaper threat seriously, but there are still species outside Council space. The Batarians, the Vorcha, the Krogan clans that haven't signed on to galactic unity. We're talking about coordinating hundreds of independent factions. Which is exactly the kind of impossible diplomatic challenge Captain Picard specializes in, Liara said with a slight smile. Captain, you've spent your career bringing disparate species together under the Federation banner. This galaxy needs that expertise now more than ever. Picard felt the weight of expectation settling on him once more, but this time it didn't feel like burden. It felt like purpose. Then we'd better get started, he said. Commander Shepard, I'd like to propose a joint task force. Enterprise crew working alongside your specialists, coordinating with Alliance and Council resources. Our mission: prepare this galaxy for what's coming. You mean prepare for war, Shepard said bluntly. I mean prepare for survival. War may be part of it, but so is diplomacy, technology, unity, and hope. The Reapers think we're predictable, that we'll follow the same patterns as every cycle before us. Let's prove them wrong. Shepard extended her hand. You know, Captain, when you first showed up in our galaxy, I thought you were just another variable to deal with. But you turned out to be exactly what we needed. Someone who thinks differently, who challenges assumptions, who won't give up even when the odds are impossible. Picard shook her hand firmly. Commander, it's been an honor serving alongside you, and I suspect our partnership is only beginning. As the meeting broke up and people filtered out to attend to their various responsibilities, Picard found himself standing alone at the viewport, looking out at the Citadel's magnificent architecture. Somewhere on that station, crew members from the Enterprise were teaching Asari scientists about warp theory. Somewhere, Alliance engineers were studying deflector shields. Somewhere, Quarians and Geth were proving that synthetic and organic life could cooperate. And somewhere beyond the stars, the Reapers waited in dark space, patient and implacable, but they would find a galaxy ready for them this time. A galaxy united by the determination to survive, guided by principles of cooperation and hope, and strengthened by the unexpected gift of a starship from another galaxy that had refused to stand by while people died. The Prime Directive felt very far away now, and Picard found he was okay with that. 6 months had passed since the destruction of the Collector base. The Enterprise orbited Thessia, the Asari homeworld, where Picard had just finished a diplomatic summit, bringing together representatives from 17 species, council and non-council alike, to coordinate defensive preparations. The progress was slower than he'd like, but it was progress nonetheless. In his ready room, Picard reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Geordi's technology exchange program was producing hybrid shield systems that combined the best of both galaxies' approaches. Worf was training joint military forces in coordinated tactics. Beverly had established medical protocols for treating multiple species, including procedures for handling Reaper indoctrination, should it occur. Data and Legion had formed an unlikely research partnership studying synthetic consciousness and its implications for understanding Reaper psychology, and Commander Shepard continued her work hunting down remaining Collector outposts and Cerberus facilities that had grown too dangerous to ignore. The door chimed. "Come." Riker entered, holding a pad. "Captain, I thought you'd want to see this. Long-range sensors have detected unusual subspace readings near the galactic rim. It might be nothing, but the energy signature is familiar." Picard took the pad, studying the data. His breath caught. "This is similar to the anomaly that brought us here, which means it might be a way home." The words hung between them. Home, Earth, the Federation. Everything they'd left behind, not by choice, but by cosmic accident. The crew deserved the chance to return, to see their families again, to resume the lives they'd built across an impossible distance. But leaving now meant abandoning this galaxy before the real battle began. The Reapers were still out there. The alliances they'd built were still fragile. The work they'd started was far from complete. Number 1, assemble the senior staff and contact Commander Shepard. They deserve to know. An hour later, the conference room was filled. Picard stood at the head of the table, looking at faces he'd known for years. Riker, Data, Geordi, Beverly, Worf, Troy. And faces he'd known only months. Liara, Shepard's holographic presence. Even Legion attending via remote connection. "We may have found a way home," Picard said simply. The anomaly that brought us here appears to have manifested again. If we're correct, we could return to our own galaxy within days." The silence was profound. Finally, Geordi spoke. "But if we leave now, the Reapers will still come," Shepard finished. "Captain, I won't lie to you. Losing the Enterprise would hurt. You've become a symbol of hope, proof that even impossible odds can be overcome. But this isn't your fight. You've already done more than anyone could ask. It became our fight the moment we fired on that collector ship," Picard said quietly. "The question is whether our duty to return home outweighs our responsibility to the people here." "Captain," Data said, "I have compiled statistical models. The presence of the Enterprise increases this galaxy's probability of surviving the Reaper invasion by approximately 18.3%. However, returning to Federation space would allow us to potentially mount a rescue mission, bringing Starfleet resources to assist. The ethical calculation is complex." "Not to me," Worf rumbled. "We are warriors. Warriors do not abandon their comrades before the battle is won." "But we have families, Worf," Beverly countered gently. "People who think we're dead. People who deserve to know we're alive." "Perhaps there's a middle option," Liara suggested. "Captain, if you can map this anomaly, understand its mechanics, you could return to your galaxy and then come back with reinforcements. Both galaxies benefit." "Assuming we can navigate it safely twice," Riker said. "Assuming Starfleet Command would authorize such a mission. Assuming the anomaly doesn't close permanently." Picard looked around the table, seeing the conflict in every face. This was command at its most difficult. Not a clear choice between right and wrong, but a choice between two rights, two duties, two paths forward. "I won't order anyone to stay," Picard said finally. "This decision is too personal, too consequential. We'll take it to a vote. Every crew member gets a say. If the majority wants to return home, we go. If they want to stay, we continue our mission here. And either way, we do it together." The vote took 3 days. When the results came in, Picard wasn't entirely surprised. 63% voted to stay. The crew of the Enterprise had chosen to fight for a galaxy that wasn't their own, for people they'd known only months, for principles that transcended the boundaries of space itself. But Picard arranged for the 37% who wanted to return, including several who had young families waiting, to take shuttlecraft through the anomaly with complete sensor logs and detailed reports for Starfleet Command. If help could be sent, it would come. If not, at least the Federation would know what happened to the Enterprise. As the last shuttle disappeared into the swirling anomaly, Picard stood on the bridge with those who had chosen to remain. They watched in silence as the gateway to home slowly collapsed, perhaps forever. "Well," Riker said quietly, "I guess this is home now." "Then we'd better make it a good one," Picard replied. He turned to his crew, seeing determination in their eyes despite the magnitude of what they'd given up. "Set course for the Citadel. We have a galaxy to defend." The Enterprise turned away from the fading anomaly and accelerated toward the distant glow of the Citadel. Ahead lay uncertain battles, unknown enemies, and challenges that would test every principle the Federation had taught them. But they would face it together, as they always had. The Reapers were coming. Let them come. The Enterprise would be ready. And somewhere in dark space, ancient machines calculated the variables of the next harvest, never imagining that one of those variables was a starship that had crossed the impossible distance between galaxies to stand against the darkness. The cycle would be broken. Captain Jean-Luc Picard would make certain of it. May the Force be with you. More stories await.